Hello guys, myself Rakesh. I have designed this Python full course for the beginners. As a beginner, you may or may not have knowledge on coding. You might have not done coding before. Not to worry. This entire course is designed in such a way that anyone who doesn't have any knowledge on the coding, they can learn, they can start. As you know, Python is on high demand and learning the skills are absolutely important for anyone who wants to get into the IT field. So definitely this will be a life changing tutorial for you. So not to worry if you have got no knowledge around the back, you're coming from a different background or a different skills that you got trained during your college time. Not to worry. Or you also have bit of knowledge on the coding. Wherever your status, whatever your status doesn't matter, you can just start from this specific course. So without wasting any further time, let's start the highly on-demand skill of Python through this tutorial. So one more point I would like to make while you are going through the course, ensure you are not skipping the instructions because I am covering from all through my experiences which I have gained. I want to cover each and every point for you so that it will be highly beneficial. So do not skip and let's begin the course. So let's get started. Now to download Python, all you have to do, type Python on your browser or else you can directly navigate to python.org. Once you open this page, click on the download option and here on the screen you would find Python 3.10.4. That is the latest available version. If you are watching this video in the future, whatever the version is available, you can simply click on this and download. So I have clicked on this and within few seconds it will get download. In case you are using some other version of Windows, use this option and click on view full list of downloads. Here you would find all the versions for Windows. If you're using Mac OS, same thing, use these tabs. Okay, and the links available on those tabs will help you to choose which is the version that you should install on your Windows. Okay, so with that we are done with this page. We'll just close this out and we are going to get onto our downloads folder and look for the file. Double click on this file and this MSI file is going to install Python on our system. Now there are a lot of things that I need to understand on the screen. The first thing, there are two different options given to you. Either you can go for a direct installation. Now if you install directly, it's going to install in the app data local programs Python. That means, let me show you, you have to go to your C drive, then uses your whatever the username you have, and then click on the view button and ensure the hidden items are selected. Then you will find app data. Click on app data, click on local, and then here you would find a Python folder once you have installed, and that's where the installation would happen if you go through the install now. So look at the location shown here on your screen and just have a look of that location. Where exactly is that? And this includes, there is something called IDLE, that means integrated development learning environment. Integrated development learning environment. This is the IDE, integrated development environment, where you will be writing the code, right? So that is known as IDLE, integrated development learning environment. Okay, there's also something called PIP. So PIP is nothing but the package installer for Python. So this will help to install and manage packages or the modules, and documentation. So if you go with this top option, if you click on it, it will automatically continue. So do not click, just understand this. Okay, and the other one that you have is customize installation. Customize installation I'm going to show you. Look at the two options given over here. Install launcher for users, all users. So on your laptop there could be multiple user accounts, right? For yourself, for your brother, or for somebody else in your family or friends you have created. So if you would like to install launcher for all users, this is recommended, so go for it. Okay, it is not going to hamper anything, simply go for it. Now the other second option available over here, add Python 3.10 which is 10.4 now, 3.10 to path. What is this? That means if you check this, it is going to allow you to access Python on your Windows command prompt. I'm going to show you that. Okay, so check this out. So on this page, you have understood everything properly. What is ideally integrated development learning environment, PIP, package installer for Python, right? It is going to help install packages and manage packages, and there's a documentation included. So now this is quite simple. If you want to go for that, even you can choose that. Otherwise, you can also go for customize installation. So I'll go with customize installation just to show you little more detail. So here it is saying documentation will be included. You can uncheck that if you don't need a documentation, but let it be. Then PIP install PIP, which can download and install other Python packages. Okay, very important. So have it. And then ideally is also required. Install and the ideally development environment, Python test suite. So I'm going to select all the options and going to hit on next. Okay, install for all users, let's select that. Okay, and let everything be the same, and this is going to install. The last one was installing the app data, but here if you look, the location is slightly different. See program files Python. You can also change it, but let's go with this. Okay, 310 means 3.10. Understood? And let's hit on install. If it is asking for a user prompt, just say yes, and the installation setup will continue for maybe a minute or so. And then once it's complete, I'm going to show you what are the different modules get installed and how to use them. Okay, one by one we will understand. Okay, now the setup is successful. Now for some of you, you would also find a small prompt here which is telling disable the max path. So if you see that prompt over here, please click on it. So that max path that you see for the very first time when you are doing, if you have not enabled it earlier, here you would find the max to enable the max. So what would happen? The limitation of a file path. For example, let's see where our Python has been installed. So let's go to C drive and let's go to program files, and here you can see Python 3.10 has been installed. So this is a file, so there is a limit of the file path which is 260 characters. Okay, so to disable that limit, so anything beyond 260, it is going to throw an error if you do not disable. So you can disable that if you see that prompt. In case you see that prompt, just click on that prompt and hit on close. So now we are done with installation. Now is the time to find, just type Python on your screen. Now the moment you type Python on your screen, you will find there are 1, 2, 3, 4 options you will find. The first one is the Python 3.10. So this is known as Python shell. Okay, so this is known as Python shell. Now let's open the second one. Then you have something called IDLE, integrated development learning environment. So let's open this. Okay, so what we have opened in the background, the black one is the Python shell, and this is the IDLE shell, integrated development learning environment shell. So how to use all that I'm going to show you. And then there are also a couple of other things. For example, there is a manual. Okay, there is a manual, and so this is complete documentation. Okay, if really you would like to go through this, this is what you can use it. And the other one, there is something called module docs. One is manual and the other one is the module docs. Okay, these are various modules. So anyways, so we have got an understanding. Now let's understand. I'm going to show how to use the Python shell, how to use the IDLE shell. So let's start with the Python shell. Let's say if I have to type print, and I'm going to say hello world, you can write, or you can say hello Rakesh. Okay, so this has been printed. Let's say I want to print something else. Print hello world. So this is the Python shell, uses of the Python shell, where you are executing each command at a time. Now let's use the IDLE, integrated development and learning environment. Let's use this particular window. So this window, let's minimize everything else. So on this window again, it works more or less in the same way. For example, hello world. So there is a syntax error. Let me try again. Print hello world. Now if I have to print Rakesh, print again within parentheses, I'm going to write hello Rakesh. Now you will say, Rakesh, again you are typing one command at a time. So this can be avoided. All you have to do, click on file, hit on new file. Okay, hit on new file, and in the new file I'm going to write, and let's say I'm going to write hello world. Okay, let's say I'm writing one sentence. If I have to execute, before executing this, let me save this file, Control S, and for making it easy, you can create a folder on your desktop or simply store it anywhere you like. So for the moment, let me save it on the desktop, and I'm going to say my first program dot py is the extension for Python. So py, and I'm going to save it. So the file has been saved. Now let's say I would like to know the execution of it, how the output of this one would look like. I can hit on run and hit on run module. The moment you do this, what would happen here? From this particular file, it has run, and this is the output. Let's say I want to make some modification. I'm going to say print, or I want to write another line, and I'm going to say hello Rakesh. Okay, I'm going to type my name, and let's say I want to save. You can do a Control S, or you can just save it, and let's hit on run. So you can see the output that both the lines have been run through this py file. Okay, this is one thing. There is also another thing I spoke about from the command prompt. You remember add to file, add to path, you have enabled it. So you can also call Python from the command prompt. Okay, so how to do that? Simply I'm writing py, hit on enter, and this 3 arrows is the symbol that it has been called 3.10.4. The same thing, you can also use the command prompt, and using the Python shell, it's going to execute. Okay, it is calling the Python shell and it's executing. You see the output has come. So these are the 3 different basic things that you have learned in this video. So thank you guys. Hopefully you have installed Python successfully and you got a knowledge what is the ideal, how to create a py file, and how to run that, how to call the Python from the Windows command prompt, and how to execute a command. In this video, we are going to learn how do you create a test.py, let's say using a notepad or any kind of a text editor, and how can you run that file using Windows command prompt. Okay, there are multiple ways I'm going to teach in the upcoming videos. Let's see how can I run a test.py from the Windows command prompt. To do that, first thing, we will open a notepad and we are going to quickly go with a simple command, print, and you can say hello world, or you can type your name. I am going to type my channel name, automate with Rakesh, and this is done. And let's quickly save us, and I'm going to save it in a very specific folder which I have created, that is my Python codes, and here I'm going to give it a name, test.py, and hit on save. So let's have a look of that file. You can see the Python symbol has come the moment I saved as .py. This will only come if you have Python installed on your system. So first thing, as I said, our topic is how can you execute using the Windows command prompt. So let's open CMD. Now in the CMD, let's type Python. space version. If you type this, it is going to let you know what is the Python version if you have it. In case you do not have, you can watch the previous video which I have created on my channel. Just go to Automate with Rakesh and you will find how to install Python 3.10.4 and the complete setup process I have explained. You can use that video. Now for this video, I want to access the file. So remember, your file is there in a different folder. So this is the directory where it exists. So let me copy the directory. The first thing I should do, because this is Windows command prompt, and on the Windows command prompt, let me first get inside the directory just by typing cd space the path, the folder path. So what happened? Now I am inside the directory. So once you are inside the directory, all you have to do, simply type Python and the file name, whatever the file name you have given. So here test, so I'm going to say test.py. So that way it is going to run. Now you have a question, how about me typing the name, because the T is in uppercase, how about if I type in lowercase? What would happen if I type in lowercase? That doesn't matter, it will still run. So you see, Automate with Rakesh has been printed properly. So here many people would do a mistake. For example, when for the very first time when you log in, right, this is what you find. So let me do a cd dot dot. Okay, so this is where you have logged in. Now what many people will do, they will type py or Python. So the moment you type Python, what happens? This is calling the shell, the Python shell. The once you enter into the Python shell and then type, let's say Python space test.py, if you type, this is going to throw an error. Okay, so let me exit. And many people also will type py, even by calling py or typing py, it is going to call the Python shell. So what is the Python shell? If you type Python on your Windows search, here you find something called Python 3.10.4, right? So this is the one, this is known as the Python shell. This is the window given from Python. This is the Python window, and this is the Windows Microsoft window, Microsoft command prompt. So by typing py, you are actually getting inside the, or you are calling the Python shell to work along with command prompt. Okay, you are calling in that. So you can see there are three arrows with the symbol. So you should exit in case you would like to execute any file just in the command prompt. All you have to do, first thing, I should go to the directory, type in the directory, and once you are inside the directory, very simple, just type Python and the file name and it will be run. Now you have a question, Rakesh, okay fine, what if I would like to run this using the Python shell? So here on the top you can see it's saying Python. How to do that? So for that, please do watch my next video. And today we are going to learn how do you run a Python file in Python shell. So if you see, this is not the command prompt, this is the Python shell. So how can I run a Python file within Python shell? So if you see, these three arrow marks are the symbol that the Python shell is on. So how do I run? Let's see that. Now first of all, this test file I have created using a simple notepad. Anyone who is very new, let's do that. Let me delete this file so that it's going to help anyone who is very new. I'm going to open a notepad and here I'm going to say print, and in bracket I'm going to say my channel name, Automate with Rakesh, and then I'm going to save as this particular file in a very specific folder which I've created under documents, and I've given a name called my Python codes. I will select this folder and here I'm going to give it a name called test.py Python. So test.py, and I'm going to save it. So the code has been scripted and it has been saved in the .py extension. Okay, this is the Python file. Now the question here, how do I run it within the Python shell? I don't want command prompt. So if you see, you need to differentiate. This is the command prompt. So where it is saying command prompt, but if you type Python and if you select this one, Python 3.10, or you could have any other version, if you click on this app, so this is Here you find it is written Python 3.10. So this is known as the Python shell. Now the question is, how do I call that file which is available in this location? This is the location of the file. So how do I call within Python shell is something we are going to see. So the very first thing what we will do, we will highlight this file. I'm not clicking on the file. I'm just, I'm not doing a double click. I'm just highlighting. And then I'm going to hit on the shift key, highlight once again, shift key, and then hold on the shift key, right click and do a copy as path. Or using properties, any ways you want, you can copy, right click and do a copy as path. So once you have that path, so I'm going to close the command prompt because this is not for the command prompt, this is for the Python shell. So on this shell, let me expand it. Let me show you what exactly I should type to execute this one. So execute, you will write the command execute, and then I'm going to say open, and then within the close parenthesis I'm going to place the entire path. Okay, and then there is a problem over here. I'm going to let you know. So here I'm going to say dot read, and I'm going to close the entire one. Okay, execute, open this, and then read this. Now if you hit enter, there is a syntax error, Unicode error. Codec cannot decode bytes in position, and there's a truncated error. So how to fix that? Let me show you. We'll go with the same code, and the only small change that we have to do after the colon, let's come over here and put one more backslash. Okay, one more backslash, and now if I execute this one, now let's try to execute this one and see what is the output of this one. So you can see it has printed the value automate with Rakesh. So that means I was successfully able to access the test.py file, and I'm able to execute that. I am able to read that, and the output of the file is automate with Rakesh. So I was able to execute. So the small learning over here with this execute, you can make a note of this, how I have written, and you can make further modifications as you need. So this is the simple way to execute a .py file or a Python file. How to run a Python program using idle. So this can be also pronounced as IDLE, or you can call it idle. This stands for integrated development and learning environment. I mean, this is a place where you can develop a script, develop a code, and also or develop a program, and also you can learn in that environment. So let's see where this idle you will be able to find. On your start search, just type Python. The moment you type Python, you should be able to find there is something called idle. There will be cases where you may not see idle. This could be because you might be using an older version of Python where idle was not part of the setup. Or it is highly possible that you have unchecked the idle during the installation. In case you wanted to see the idle application, all you have to do, go to my channel by clicking on the icon, clicking on the logo, and then come to the video section of my page and type Python. Here you would find a complete setup video how to install latest Python 3.10.4 on Windows 10, and here I have informed how to enable the idle if you are going for a custom setup. So you can watch this entire video. Now let's focus on idle. So as I said, this IDLE or idle stands for integrated development and learning environment. That means I can develop and learn. So let's see how this idle can be used, or this idle shell can be used. Let's start with a very simple command. I am going to type print, and within the parenthesis I am going to give two double quotes, and within the double quote I am going to write hello world. And then if you hit on enter by going to the end of the code, you can see the output has been printed here. Now let's say I want to type another, let's say I want to type my channel name, or you would like to type your own name. So you can do that. I'm going to type my channel name, automate with Rakesh. I'll go to the end, hit on enter. Now you can see automate with Rakesh has been printed out. Let's say I would like to do some kind of a calculation where I'm going to provide a value to the value a is equal to 10 and hit on enter. That got executed. Now I'm going to say b is equals to 20 and hit on enter, and then c is equals to a plus b. Now I wanted to hit on enter. Here I would like to see the output print, and in the bracket I don't have to give a double quote because this is a variable and I can simply print. So you can see the output has come. And remember, this 3 arrows that you see, this is the symbol for the Python. That means the Python shell is active to take your codes, right, that you have written in the Python codes. It can execute. Now I'm also going to tell you, let's say I'm going to write P in capital, and here I'm going to say I want to print my name, let's say Rakesh, and I'm going to hit on enter. So what is happening the moment you hit on enter? It is giving you a error. What is the error? Name print is not defined. Did you mean print in lowercase? So please be careful while you are using the specific codes. Now what is happening, for every specific code I have to type and hit on enter to see the output. You will have a question, Rakesh, what if I want to type everything in a given file and I would like to execute? Yes, that is possible. All you need to do, click on file, click on new file, and keep this window beside this window. Okay, and the very first thing, once you open a new file, the very first thing you must do is you have to save it. So let's hit on save as and give it a name, and I'm going to store it in a very specific folder where I would like to store all my Python code. So in the documents I have created a folder called my Python codes. I'll go inside that, and here I'm going to create a file called test2.py, stands for Python. Okay, so the file is created and you can see the new file has got a name and it knows where it is in the C drive. Let's write a few codes here. So I'll be saying print, and I'm going to, within the double parenthesis, I'm going to give double quote, and I'm going to write automate with Rakesh. And then let's say I want to make a calculation. I will say a equals to 10. So I'm writing, hitting on enter. So I'm writing multi-line code and still I have not executed. Okay, first I want to write everything. Then c is equals to a plus b, right? And now I would like to print c. So what is happening, by hitting on enter, it won't print anything. You can see it is not printing. So what I should do, the very first thing you should do is you should file and save it. This is the rule. You have to save the file. Once you save the file, then you should click on run on the idle window. This is the idle application. Now on the idle, here you have to hit on run and hit on run module, or you can also use F5. The moment we do that, now you can see on the idle shell, the primary page, it is showing me the output, automate with Rakesh. Now let's say I don't want to do a control. Let's say I want to make another, I want to write another formula. C is equals to b minus a. So the output should be 10. And I would like to print C. I want to make some modification to the code. So I have done few modification to the code. Now if you directly go and hit on run, what would happen? As I said, as a rule, it will ask you to save it. Source must be saved. Okay to save. Okay, first you should save it, and once it's saved, it will run and it is giving you the output, automate with Rakesh 30 and 10. Getting it? So you got an understanding how to use the idle shell or the integrated development learning environment shell, and how do you create a new file. And the same thing can also be saved in a notepad. For example, let me type the same code. I don't want to use the idle shell. Let me close it, and I'm going to save this in a notepad. Okay, let me close this. Now this is a notepad. The notepad file I'm going to save as, and I'll go to the same location where I have my folder to store my codes, and here I'm going to give it a name called test.3.py, and it's going to save it. So what happened, this file has become a Python file. Now let's go to the location, my Python codes, and here the test3 has become a Python file. Now how do I run this Python file from idle? Very simple. Open the idle application, and in the idle application I'll click on file, and I'm going to say open. Okay, file open, and I will go to the specific file test3 which is created using notepad. Click on open, and you can see it has opened, right? So once it is open, I would like to run this. Very simple, hit on run module, and it is going to show me the output. Getting it? So I showed you all the different ways that you can use your idle shell. In this video, we are going to practically see what is Python indentation, or what is indentation in Python. Generally, indentation means space. So the space that we provide in the beginning of a code line. Remember the word beginning. At the beginning of a code line, when you are providing a space in Python, is known as indentation. So let's see this practically, and if you do not give a space, or if you do not give an indent, what's going to happen, we are going to learn. So the very first thing I will do, I'll type Python on my start search, and here you have the idle application. This is the integrated development learning environment, and this is where we can develop our codes in Python. There are various different applications like PyCharm, Jupyter Notebook, there are many, but let's use the application which is given by Python, right? So let's start. Now once you open idle shell, there are a couple of things you might be interested. One is you have to hit on options, and you want to configure idle. Okay, hit on configure idle, and whatever the font size, right, font you need, or what kind of a color that you might look for, right, all this can be selected over here and applied. Very simple. So once everything is done, now let's do one thing. Let us create a new file. In the idle, I'm going to hit on file and hit on new file. Okay, and in the new file which is open, which is untitled, let's give it a name. So I will hit on save as. I have created a very specific folder under documents known as my Python codes, and in this folder I'm going to save, I'll give it a name called Python indentation. Okay, so you may feel like giving an extension .py, but because we are saving it from the Python idle application, you don't have to, because this is going to save us Python files. So I'm going to hit on save. So what would happen, the .py, the Python extension has already been added. So what we did till now, we have created a Python file. And how did we create? We open idle, hit on file, new file, and we have saved that file. Very simple. So the file is created. Now few things you might need here is hit on options, and you might look for a show line numbers. Okay, you can enable that. Let's get started. So our main intention here is to learn indentation. So I'm using a hash for a comment, and I'm going to say we are going to learn Python indentation. Done. Now in the line 2, let me print. Remember, if you type P capital, again there will be a problem. So do not type P in capital, it is case sensitive. So I'm going to type P in smaller case, print, and here within the parenthesis I'm going to say program started ... Okay, now let's see. I'm going to create some two variables, and I'm going to provide some value. A is equals to 10, and I'm going to say B is equals to 20. And in the fifth line, I'm going to say if space B greater than A colon. If B is greater than A, then print, and I'm going to say B is greater. So what is happening, you noticed the moment I typed this if, Generally for a if you will be using curly braces, isn't it? Most of the program where you will be using a curly braces. But in Python, instead of a curly braces, they are using a space. Remember, instead of using a curly braces to represent a block of code, in Python we will be using a space. Getting an understanding? So here what happened, the moment you hit on enter, a space has been given before the print. So that represents that it is a block of a code. Clear? Now let's do one thing. Let's save this. Save, you can do Control S and then you can run module by doing F5. So what happened? Program started, B is greater. Let's see if I'm going to remove the space. I'm going to remove the space, okay, and do a F5. You can directly do F5. See, let's do a F5 and you will get this prompt to save. Hit on OK. So what happened here? It is throwing an error, expected an indented block after if statement on line number 5. Okay, so here there is a, after this in line number 5, after this there has to be a space, it is saying. So what we are going to do, we have to give a space. At least a single space has to be given. You can give multiple spaces, doesn't matter, but minimum a single space has to be given. Doesn't matter how you want to give space, how many spaces you want to give, but ensure at least a single space is given. So I have given a single space, Control S, and I can do a F5, and here you see the program has started. Now let's learn one more thing. Let's say I want to type one more thing below this print, and I'm going to say program ended. Let's say I want to type this. So let's do a F5, run it, click on OK. So program started, B is greater, program ended. So here I have given the similar space, single space. Now let's say I want to give a little more space, and let's run it, F5. Okay, what would happen? Unexpected indent. Do you see? So it is telling you, if you are writing a block of a code, whatever space that you have maintained, let's say I have given one space for the first print, in the same block I can't use more than that. I have to go with only one space. So I have to follow the rule. What is the rule? Because I have given one space, I have to go with one space. So Control S, F5. If you run it, now it has run. Let's say I want to give double space. So if you have given double space to the first one, and for the second one I have given only one space, let's do a F5, click on OK. What happened? Again it has thrown an error. Unindented does not match any outer indentation label, so it is not matching. So you have to match the indent. How many spaces you have given for the previous line, you have to maintain that everywhere for that block of a code. So I have done it, Control S, okay, and let's do a F5. Now the program has run. Very good. Let's go back. Let me add one more sentence. Let me use a backspace, and I'm going to say else colon, and here I want to print else A is greater, right? I'll say A is greater. Let's say I want to print another sentence, and here below this again I'll repeat print, and I will say within double quote I will say program ended. Done. So let's do a F5. What would happen? Will it run? Yes. So let's change the value. I want to make A is greater, so I'll give it 100. I will do a F5, hit on OK. So program started, A is greater, program ended. So it is coming. So here if you see in this block I have given one space, but in this block there is a great, let's say, let me increase it. Okay, I have given more spaces in this one. So let's do a F5, hit on OK. See, it has run. So whatever the block of code you are using, ensure the space is maintained properly. This is all about indentation. If you do not maintain a space, if you make a single mistake, it's going to give an error. It has to be exactly the same, should match with the previous indent. So you have to maintain it. So thank you guys for watching it. Hopefully it would have given a lot of knowledge about the rules, the indentation rules in Python. In this video, let's learn what are comments in Python, or how to use comments in Python and when they are used. Generally on my screen, if you see, the comments are used to explain and make the code more readable, right? So you have created a code and in the future somebody wants to make a change. If you have written comments, that makes it quite easy to understand. And also it can be used during you are testing or you are developing a project. You would like to disable some of the codes, you don't like to run it, right? Sometimes when you would like to disable, even the comments are used. So the comments, let's see practically how this can be utilized. So I'm going to open idle. So you can do this on any of the editor windows like Jupyter, PyCharm, Notepad. So I'm using idle here just to keep it simple. And this is the software from Python. So let's use it. The very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open a new file and give it a name, save as, and let's give it a name, and I'm going to store it in a specific folder that I've created, and I'm going to give it a name called comments and hit on save. So once this is done, the comments are generally done by putting a hash symbol. So I'm saying hash, this is a comment, okay? And let's say I want to say a, or let's keep it simple, let's say let's use print, okay? I want to say print and I want to say hello world. So what happens the moment we have entered a hash symbol, this particular line, so everything will have a line. So let me enable the show line numbers. So the line which starts from, remember, which starts from hash symbol, that becomes a comment and the interpreter is going to ignore it during execution. For example, let's run it. You can run it by hitting on run module or simply by hitting on F5. So let me hit on F5 and it's going to ask you to save the file. Hit on save, hit on OK, and you can see hello world has been executed. Let's go back, and here you can see this particular line has been ignored, right? This line has been ignored. Let's say what will happen if I'm going to say print, right? And then within the brackets and within the double quote, if I'm going to say hash hello world, is it going to be ignored? Do you think is it going to be ignored? Let's do a F5 and hit on OK. So what happened? Hello world and also hash hello world has been executed. Why this has happened? Why it has returned the value hash? Because this has been written within the, this has been taken as a string value. Python considered this as a string value because it has written in the parenthesis and has been given a double quote. So this will not work. So if you write at the starting of the line, okay, remember starting of the line. So these things are known as, this is, you can also call this as individual comments. You can call this as individual comments. Now let's say there is something called inline comment. What is inline comment? For example, let me type print and let me type within double quotes, I'm going to say automate with Rakesh. That's my channel name, guys. So with this, if I type here, after this, if I'm going to type hash for in this line, in the line number 3, I'm typing this is my channel. So what would happen? This entire code will be executed. However, anything after in the line, anything after this will be ignored. So let's run it. Hit on F5, click on OK. So what is the output? Hello world, automate with Rakesh has appeared, but this is my channel, so this has been ignored. So this is known as inline comments. Getting it? Now you will ask how to do multi-line comments. So anywhere you would like to do a multi-line comment, very simple, you have to simply keep on adding hash. And by adding hash, what happens? The command is ignored. You can see that the color also have changed. Okay, the color has changed. For example, the first one I have ignored. So in the last run, we saw the hello world was printed here. Now if I execute, hitting on F5, clicking on OK, what happens? Only automate with Rakesh is printed. That means only the second line was printed and this line has been ignored. This can be applied to any code The moment you type a hash at the beginning of the line, remember at the beginning of the line, then it is completely ignored. What happens if you write, after the code, if I'm writing, this is known as inline comments. So in a line, I am trying to comment inline comments, and in this inline comment, the previous set of code that you have written, right, prior to this, it will be executed, and anything after hash will be ignored. So that's more or less about comments and how to use them in Python. Thank you guys. Please do connect with my channel where I'm going to teach you in a very simple way, and you can learn Python and master in a couple of months. In this video, we are going to learn how to apply multi-line comments in Python. Basically, on Python, till now, we do not have a syntax for a multi-line, but you can still apply this. So let's see how to do it. I'm going to open one of the .py file, and here I'm going to write, let's write a sentence. This is a multi-line comment in Python. So what is the meaning multi-line means? What is the understanding we have? So instead of writing in a single line, I'm writing multiple lines. Very simple, multiple lines, maybe multiple sentences, multiple, whatever you say, but it is written in multiple lines. So what are these lines actually? So if you hit on configure, show line number, so you can see every time you hit on enter, you are entering into a new line actually. So here, this is a simple sentence I have written. So how do I put a comment? Generally, if you are having a multi-line, you can use a hash, and there is also an alternate way I'm going to show you. I'm using a hash. So what would happen? All these three lines will be ignored by the Python interpreter. And let's say I want to say print. I'll write print, and then I'm going to say automate with Rakesh. Done. So if you do a F5, if you execute this, hit on OK. So what would happen? What is the output are we expecting out of this? Automate with Rakesh, and all the top three lines has been ignored. Now the other way to do it, because this may not be this may be slightly difficult to put a hash symbol with all the lines, right? So people wanted to make it easy. So the simple way, what you can do, hit a enter within 3 triple quotes. Okay, within 3 triple quotes, whatever you are going to type, this is actually read by the interpreter. This is not exactly ignored, this is read, but this is not going to be used anywhere. Reason being, this value is not assigned to a variable. So let's see that. So I have written this in this way. Hit on F5 to execute on this window, on this idle window. Hit on OK. So what happened? Automate with Rakesh has come. This thing will immediately change. For example, if I'm going to say A is equals to, what I'm doing, I'm assigning a variable, and I'm assigning this value, and here if I say print, and within that I'm going to say A and try to print this. Let's do a F5. Okay, so look at the output now. First thing, it has printed automate with Rakesh, and is saying this is a multi-line comment in Python. Just ignore my spelling while teaching, it happens. So here you can see this is a multi-line comment in Python, and it also has printed because we have assigned the entire value to a variable. That's why the output has appeared over here. Getting it? So in case you do not want, ensure these things are not assigned to any variable, and if you run it, this 3 will be read by the interpreter, but again it will not be used anyway. Right? So let's delete this print A because we are not using it. Do a F5, hit on OK, and you should see the output. Okay, you can see automate with Rakesh was printed and all the 3 lines were ignored. So this is one of the way where you can write multi-line comments in Python. Hey guys, myself Rakesh, and I'm here today to explain almost everything about Python variables. So there are 6 major points that you must know about Python variables. So let's get started. The very first thing I'm going to type Python, and I'm going to open the idle application to practice variables in Python. So you must be already aware that idle is the application provided from Python to practice, to develop and learn, right? So integrated development learning environment. Now on this, let's create a very new file and let's save this file. Let's maximize this and let's save this file on any given location. If you are using any other notepad, for example notepad, Jupyter, or PyCharm, any other editor window that you are using, that's also fine, because everything would remain the same, the concepts would remain the same. So let me quickly save it and give it a name, Python variables, and click on save. Okay, so once our file is ready, you can see the .py extension has been added. Now here we have to learn some 6 major points about variables. So the very first thing you should understand, when I am saying x is equal to 3, let's say. Now what happens, this variable, what are variables if I ask you? What are variables? So variables are nothing but they are containers, right? Containers to store data values, isn't it? Very simple. So x becomes a container which is going to store the value 3. And remember, this is the first major point that you should understand. This is a container to store data value. The second major point about variable, these variables are created, okay? I'm just writing it over here. They are created at the time the values are assigned to it. These are created at the time values are assigned to it. So the moment it'll get created at the time you are writing x is equal to 3 or x is equal to John, anything you are writing, at the same time the variables get created. Okay, this is a very important point that you should know. So there are 2 points we have understood. One, the variable is a container to store data values. The second point, the variables are created at the time we are assigning values to it. Okay, and remember, let's see that. For example, I'm typing x is equal to 3 and I'm going to say y is equals to, I'm going to say John. Okay, there are 2 things I have typed. Now let's say, let's print this. So I'm going to say print, in the brackets I'm going to say x. Okay, and the next thing I am going to do is print and I'm going to say y. So there are 2 variables I want to print. Let's hit on F5. If you are very new, click on run and run module and it will ask you to save it. Hit on OK, and the moment you do it, it has printed 2 values here. The first one is 3 and the second one is John. Now you have a question, Rakesh, what if I want to print both the things at the same time? Correct? So let's do that. Comma y. Just by putting a y, I can do that. So to run it, every time you can hit on F5. Okay, so let's do that. F5, hit on OK, and here you can see 2 things has been printed, 3 and John. Now because we are concentrating on variables, let's also understand what would happen. Let's say instead of x, here I am saying x is equal to John. So I have given 2x, x is equal to 3, x is equal to John, and I want to print x. So tell me, what is the value that will be printed? Is it going to print 3 or it's going to print John? So the 3, so at this time when it is taking 3, this is the integer value, and this time the x is taking a different data type. This is a string data type. So remember, we don't have to, like any other programming, we generally have to declare data type, right? Remember, generally in lot there are other programs wherein you have to declare a data type, right? But in Python you don't necessarily, you can declare, there is a way, but you don't have to necessarily declare it. Okay, for example, when I say x is equal to 3, this becomes an integer data type, and when I'm saying x is equal to John, it has become a string data type. So when I'm typing print x, what would be the output? Let's do a F5. The output will be John. Getting it? Because the last one, this is the value it is going to store, and this becomes John. Now the next thing that comes to our mind, Rakesh, what will happen? Let's do this. Let's start with, remember the variables are case sensitive. Okay, very important point. Variables are case sensitive. Okay, what do I mean by case sensitive? For example, if I type a is equals to, I'm saying 10. Now let's say I'm going to say a is equals to, let's say I'm going to type my name Rakesh. Now if I print small a, if I'm going to print small within the parenthesis, I'm going to say small a, right? And if I'm going to print capital A, what will happen? Tell me. Because variables are case sensitive, a will be a different variable and capital small lowercase a is a different variable and capital or the uppercase a is a different variable. So here I'm going to see two different outputs. So let's do a F5. Okay, and here you can see the first one is saying 10 and the second one is saying Rakesh. So this is a very important point. When you are using a variable, whatever the way you have typed, you need to maintain that. You can't say you have written the variable a and you're trying to type or use capital A. That will not work. They are case sensitive. So remember that. Very, very important point. And you don't have to declare a variable. I said, right? You don't have to declare a variable. Now the question comes, Rakesh, what if, right? As I said, you don't have to declare a variable. Not necessary to declare a variable. Now let's say if I'm saying x is equals to 3. So what is the meaning? Now if I say x is, or let's say I'm going to take another variable, y is equals to, let me say within double quote, let's say I'm going to say 3. So what this 3 and what this x will be, tell me. So for example, I want to know the type. Okay, so I'll say print, and here I'm going to use the function called type, and within the double quote I'm going to say x. Check this how I'm writing, print type x. Okay, the same thing let's repeat for the second one, and I'm going to say print double parenthesis for the print, and then I'm going to say type, and for the type function again parenthesis, and I'm going to say y. Simple. Now if you do a F5, if you execute this, what will be the output? See, the first one is saying the x is a integer type. Now the second one is a string type. Okay, it's automatically, so that's why you don't have to declare it. It automatically understand. It automatically understand. Okay, because you have written in double quote, this must be a string, so it is a string type. Because x is equal to 3, that is a integer type. Okay, this one you have understand. Now the next, the fifth point. So what are the things we have covered? Containers. Variables are containers. The variables are created at the time you are assigning a value to it. They are case sensitive. If you are writing small a, upper a, there are two different variables. They are not the same variable, we have learned, right? Then the next thing we saw how you can see the type, what kind of a data type it contains. Let's say now we are going to learn something about casting. Okay, what is casting? For example, if I am saying x is equals to, and I'm going to say string, and I'm going to say string 3, because generally if I'm typing x is equal to 3, what happens? That takes it as an integer until you put a double quote. So if I want to say string 3, so this becomes a string type. Okay, now let's say I'm going to say y is equals to int 3. What? Int, in the bracket, in the parenthesis, I'm going to say 3. So what this y will become? This become a integer type, integer data type, string data type, and this is integer data type. Now let's say I'm going to say z or z is equal to, I'm going to say float, right? And I'm going to say 3. So this becomes the float data type. So first one is a string data type, the second one is the integer data type, and the third one is the float data type. And all of this you can just see. Just now I taught you how to write that, print and then say type, right? Then use double parenthesis, and within that you'll have to say, let's say I want to print, let's say 0, and to print float type. Okay, like that you can experiment. So let me do a F5, hit on OK. So what happened? Let's see the output. The class is float. Getting it? So this is how we can, so these are the 5 different points that we have covered. Now the 6th point is about, tell me, the single quote and the double quote. Okay, there are two things, single quote and double quote. So how to use this single quote and double quote? So what would happen? Let's say I want to declare a variable. Let's say x is equals to, I can write in double quote John, right? What will happen if I write x is equals to, and I'm going to say in single quote, I'm going to say Rakesh. Let's give it a different variable so we can print it. Okay, now if I print x, hit enter, and let's say I want to print y, I will write y and hit enter. So remember, they are case sensitive, you have to be very careful. Let me hit on F5, hit on OK. So what will be the output? John and Rakesh have come. So doesn't matter if you want to declare a string, you can either go with double quote or you can go with single quote. Okay, so let's recall what are the things, because revising is very important. What we have learned, first point we have learned is variable is nothing, is a container to store, I'm not writing the entire sentences, container to store the values that we have learned. The second point that we have learned is it's created at the time value is assigned to it. The moment you are assigning a value, it understand what data type this one, and you don't have to really declare a data type, right? So created, the variable is created at the time the value is assigned to it. The third very important point, they are case sensitive, we have learned, right? Very important point. And the fourth important point that we have learned, they don't have to be declared, not necessary to declare, I would say not necessary to declare. How? Because just now we also saw when you're typing x is equal to 4, the x becomes an integer. When I'm saying x is equal to John, the x becomes a string data type, so automatically it will understand what data type it is. Okay, and the fifth point that we have understood about casting, how we can do the casting. So what we have done, we have written x is equal to str, and in the bracket we are providing some value. Let's say 3 becomes a string now, right? Let's say I want to say y is equal to int, and I want to give it some value, let's say 3. So this become an integer kind of a data type. Getting it? So casting we have learned. And the sixth point, very important point, is when you have to declare a string, either you can use a single quote or double quotes, doesn't matter. Okay, so 1 2 3 4 5 6, the 6 very important points that we have learned about variables in this video. In this video, let's understand what are the variable naming standards, right? If you have to name a variable like x equals to 2 or whatever you are typing, what are the standards? Are there any rules? Yes, definitely there are rules in Python while you are naming a standard, naming a variable. So let's see that. Let's understand one by one. Okay, the very first one, you can use the very first one. Okay, for and ensure you are making note, you are maintaining a separate notebook where you are writing all this. Now the very first one, single letter variables. Can I create single letter variables? The answer is yes. You can declare single letter variables. For example, x is equal to 5, and let's say I'm going to say y is equal to Rakesh, and in case you would like to print this, you can do it, print, and I can say x comma y. So this can be done, no problem with this. Let's run it. F5, hit on OK. Alright, now in the idle shell, print OK. Why there is an error? I made a small mistake. The piece has to be in lowercase. Okay, hit on F5, OK. Alright, so you can see the output has come 5 and Rakesh, so both has been printed. So single letter variables are allowed. Okay, this is the first thing we have learned. Now the second thing, we are also going to understand how about descriptive names. Can I go with descriptive variables? What do I mean by descriptive? For example, let's say I want to say employee name is equals to Rakesh. Is it allowed? Is it allowed? Yes, it is allowed. I can go with that. So let me say print and then say employee name, right? So if I do this and hit on F5, okay, then the output will come. Okay, you can see the employee name Rakesh has been printed quite well. Okay, let me keep it aside so that it's easy to verify. So this is also allowed. So the second point that we have learned is about the descriptive variable. Okay, now the third thing we are going to learn few rules. Okay, what are the rules? How do I, let's say someone will say, Rakesh, can I write a variable? So few rules I'm going to talk about. Okay, what are the rules? This is the third point we are covering. So what are the rules while I'm creating a variable? Okay, so what are the rules? The first one, let's say I'm typing name. Okay, I said name is equals to Rakesh, or let's make it slightly more easy. Let's go with customer name. So I've written customer name is equal to Rakesh. So this is going to work, no problem. But what if I'm going to start this with a number? Let's say I'm going to say first customer name is equal to Rakesh. Now this is wrong. You cannot have a numeric or the number at the beginning of the variable. This is the rule you should remember. You cannot have a number at the beginning of the variable. So for example, if I run this, if I do a F5 and hit on OK, you can see invalid decimal literal. So this is very important rule. You cannot have a number at the beginning of a variable. So how should I start? So you should always start with either a alphabet. You can start with a alphabet, or you can start with underscore. Okay, two things are allowed. For example, when I was typing first, right, this was not working, but if I type underscore first customer name, this is going to work. Let's print it. Okay, this is not going to throw any error, so I'm going to say double quote, and within the double quote I'm going to copy this name. So I've given a underscore before the number, because I said you can't use number, but you can use either a alphabet or you can use a underscore. Okay, so let's run it. Hit on OK. So here you can see it has printed the output as Rakesh. So underscore is allowed and alphabet is allowed. This is one of the very important rule. Now the other thing you can go with, let's say you cannot use any kind of another rule is, okay, only alphanumeric things are allowed. For example, alphabet and all the numbers are allowed in the variable. You cannot use at the rate, you cannot use any other symbols, dollar, right? For example, let's do that. Here I've written first customer name. Let's say first here I'm writing at the rate customer name. Is it going to work? If I'm using a at the rate customer name, is it going to print? So let's do a F5, hit on enter. So what happened? It thrown an error, cannot assign to expression. Here maybe you meant instead of, so this is the error which is coming. The rule is you can only use alphabets, all alphabets, capital, small, doesn't matter. Numbers you can use underscore, right? But you cannot use any special characters like at the rate, dollar symbol, right, star, all these things you cannot use inside a variable. Only alphabets, numbers and underscores are allowed. So to rectify this, all I can do is instead of at the rate, I can put an underscore over here, underscore, and this can work. Let me do a F5, hit on OK, and you can see it has printed the output. Okay, without any problem it has printed the output. Okay, very important rule we have understood. You can use alphabets and numbers at the beginning. You cannot use a number. You can start with the underscore. Okay, you cannot use any kind of a special characters. Okay, only alphabet, numbers and underscore is allowed. And very other important point that we have already covered in the previous video, that they are case sensitive. Okay, the fourth point or the fifth point, will be case sensitive. What is case sensitive? For example, if I type name, let's say I'm typing name is equals to Rakesh, and here I'm going to say another name in N capital, and I'm going to say N equals to, and I'm going to say John, and let's say I'm going to say NAME all capital, and I'm going to say this equals to Rohan, right? Any format you type. If you are writing in a different format, then all these variables are separate variables. Okay, let's say Yami. Okay, I'm typing all the names. Now let's say I'm going to print one of them, not all. I'm going to say print which one we should print. Let's say the capital one I'm going to print. So all this, the way you have typed, all these are 4 different variables. They are not the same variable. These are all 4 different variables. So if I'm saying print name, that means it's only going to print Rohan. It's not going to print Yami or Rakesh or anything else. It's going to print only Rohan because it is case sensitive. Remember that. So if I hit on F5 and run this, what would happen? The output is Rohan. Why the output Rohan has come? Because as per the the way we have written, right, they are case sensitive. So ensure the variable, the way you have written, the same way it has to be written. A small change will make a difference. Okay, so these are the 5 different points that we have learned. Now let's repeat what are the things. The first one, what we have learned, let's see how many people do remember. First thing is we can go with short names. Okay, what is the second thing we have learned? What is the second point we have learned? Descriptive names we can go with, right? What is the third thing that we have learned? Cannot start with number. You cannot start a variable with a number. That we have learned. We have seen the example. What is the fourth point we have learned? You can start with underscore, right? You can use a underscore to create a variable. Okay, at the beginning you can use an underscore, that will work. What is the fifth thing we have learned? You can only use alphabets, all kind of alphabet, uppercase, lowercase, doesn't matter, alphanumeric, right? Alphabets and numbers you can go with, right? But you cannot start with a number, but in between the alphabet, for example, I can say customer, let's say I'm going to first name, something like that. Okay, so I can go I can use a number in between. What is the other thing we have learned? Tell me. We can't use any special symbols like at the rate. You cannot use like at the rate in a variable, or let's say dollar symbol, or any percentage and all that. Okay, this is not allowed. And all the variables that you are going to use, they are case sensitive. They are case sensitive. So we have to be very careful while using or declaring a variable. So thank you guys. So with this examples, you must be very clear what are the naming standards of while creating a variable during your Python coding. Hey guys, in this video we are going to learn the programming naming conventions. So there are 3 different standards that is widely used. The first one is the camel case, the second one is the snake case, the third one is the Pascal case. So what is this camel case, how to use, and everything we are going to learn practically. Okay, now it is very important, and this is generally used. You have a question, right? When I should use it? When you have to use multi-word variables, right? When I have to use multi-word variables, it is very difficult to read. For example, if I say employee first name, this is a multi-word employee, then I'm writing first name. So sometimes it is quite difficult to read. This is a 3-letter word. There could be even 4 and 5-letter words. It will be very difficult to read. So that's why there is a standard. So let's first learn the first standard. Okay, so the first standard is, I'll give it a hash and say the number 1. The first standard is camel case. Okay, very popular one, camel case. So how to write camel case? Let's say if I have to write employee first name, so I'll say employee first name. So there are three words. The first word is the employee, second is first, and the third is name. So the first word in camel case is always written in lower case. The first word will be written in the lower case, and the second and anything after that will be, the first letter of that word will start with uppercase. Okay, so first letter started with uppercase and you will continue, but the first word will, the complete word will be in lower case. Okay, so this is the camel case. And what is the second one? The second one is the snake case. Snake case. So how to write snake case? For example, if you write employee, so I'll use a underscore to join all the words. Okay, first underscore name. So here you don't have to make any capital letters. Very simple, employee underscore first underscore name. So this is also one of the popular standards while naming a multi-word variable. Okay, so when to use? When there's a multi-word variable. Now the third standard is the Pascal standard or Pascal case. So how to write this? This one, every word starts with a uppercase. Every word will start with uppercase. For example, employee first name. Okay, this is also, some of companies would follow the Pascal case, where they will write all the variables in the first word of each word will start with a capital letter. So these are three different standards how you can define a variable when there are multiple words in a variable that has to be used. So thank you guys for watching it. Please do connect with our channel.